Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the Massachusetts Attorney General's Office Community Engagement Webinar Series. Today we're going to be talking about identity theft and scams prevention, so everyday scams and identity theft. Thank you for joining. Again, my name is Bengani Jiranyama. I'm a program manager within the Massachusetts Attorney General's Office. I'm joined by my colleague, Tim Deppen.
Good morning.
And before we actually get into the webinar, just want to give a little bit of housekeeping updates. Throughout the presentation, everyone's line is actually muted, but if you want to ask us any questions, you can actually use the chat function. There should be either onto your side or on top of your screen, there should be a little chat bubble. If you go into there, you can actually use the chat function and send questions to the entire group through that. We'll periodically stop the presentation and try to answer any questions. It really does help us out. Brings up different issues that maybe we don't directly talk about in the presentation, or new things that maybe get into some other parts of identity theft and scams prevention as well. So please do that. We just want to let you know that if you don't mind actually changing your name to either your name or your organization, it really does help us out identify who has logged into the presentation and who we're talking to as well. There's another little emoji guy on the top corner. If you go into that and you go to the participant list, your name should be on the first. It should be like viewer 1 or viewer 8 or viewer 12. You can just right-click on that and then change your name, and that really helps us out as well. If you have any technical questions about join me, or you have any difficulties viewing the presentation or even hearing the presentation, our program assistant, Ava, is waiting. You can reach her at 617-963-2541. Once again, that's 617-963-2541. She would be more than happy to help you out with any technical questions that you have. You can also email her at agocommunityengagement@state.ma.us as well. We are going to be actually recording this presentation, so in about a week or so, we'll be sending out a YouTube link that you can refer back to, or you can send out with your organization or your community as well. But immediately after this presentation, we'll be sending a PDF copy of the PowerPoint as well as a survey. If you don't mind taking some time out, it's usually about 1 minute. It's 8 questions long, but it really does go a long way to help us and to better our webinars as well. We're now going to get into the webinar, and before we do that, we're going to do just a general introduction of the Attorney General's Office, and then we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of today's webinar on identity theft and scams prevention. So first off, who is the Attorney General? Right there on your screen, that is Attorney General Maura Healey, and she is the Chief Lawyer and Law Enforcement Officer in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It's actually interesting. She has an interesting background in which she first started off as a basketball player, first playing at Harvard University, and then professionally in Europe. After a couple of years of playing professionally, she decided to come back to the States, get her law degree, and eventually dedicate her life to public service, where she became the chief of our Civil Rights Division, and then eventually the chief of our Public Protection and Advocacy Bureau as well, which is our most forward-facing and public-facing bureau in the office. It hosts divisions that look at things like consumer protection, workers' rights, and civil rights as well. And it's quite interesting, when she was running for Attorney General in 2014, she went out to every different community in Massachusetts, talked about her vision for the state and what her office can do. But a lot of people were excited about what she said and her vision as well. But they said, I don't really understand how the Attorney General's office can really help my community, help my family, and help myself as well. And to be able to get our office into different places throughout the state, she created our team, the community engagement team, so we can create programs and trainings, kind of like what we're doing today, where we can actually go into different communities or through innovative ways bring the resources of our office to different people, to different organizations, nonprofits, businesses, whoever, throughout the state as well. And who is the Attorney General's office, and how do we serve people? Who we are? Who do we serve? I'm sorry. We serve residents of the Commonwealth and their public interest in general. So we look out and make sure that Massachusetts general laws are enforced and are properly applied in the state, but we also make sure that residents of Massachusetts, regardless of any protected status such as race or gender, sexual orientation, national origin, veteran status, or anything in between, as long as you live in Massachusetts, we represent your interests as well. We also represent groups of consumers. So I'll give you an example. Our Fair Labor Division looks into workers' rights situations. If the Fair Labor Division receives a whole bunch of complaints from or a tip that business is withholding fair wages or practicing illicit business practices or not giving their workers their fair rights under Massachusetts general laws, we'll actually investigate that situation and either enforce the laws or come up with a solution or settlement that helps out the workers and either gives them some money or some type of remedy as well. We also get a lot of people asking us, hey, can you represent me on my individual court action or my case or anything like that? Unfortunately, we cannot represent individuals. One of the reasons why we cannot represent individuals is because we do have a constitutional duty to represent State Department's offices and commissions as well, so any complaints that log in towards them that might get a court action, we have an administrative law division that's actually tasked with representing them in court regardless of the issue. How do we serve people in Massachusetts? I kind of like to break it up into two different ways, although you'll see four on your screen. The first is kind of your traditional law enforcement type of way. It's investigations and enforcement, right? We have investigators, we have mediators, we have paralegals, we have legal analysts, and we have assistant attorney generals in our office. They're looking and they're making sure that they are enforcing and investigating different bad actors in Massachusetts. So they kind of do that through the traditional ways, but we, as an office, want to make sure that people are aware of their rights and also their responsibilities under the laws to make sure that they don't break the laws or break rules and regulations before it even happens. And we do that through two innovative ways. One is prevention. It's kind of like this, where we go into communities, organizations, nonprofits, businesses, and we give presentations so that people know about their rights and responsibilities under the laws. Another way is through policy. We receive a lot of different complaints every day from people throughout the state. We also interact with a lot of people in many different divisions and many different topic areas. We use all that information to actually advocate for either legislative changes or regulatory changes as well. We have a whole policy and government division that looks into issues either on the state level or on the national level and the federal level as well. Those are the different ways that how we serve people in Massachusetts. And like I said earlier, our Public Protection and Advocacy Bureau helps with protecting students against predatory for-profit schools. Like I said, our Fair Labor Division makes sure that people are paid their fair wages. We combat discrimination based on civil rights as well. And then we look at different consumer protection issues. And once you call our office, the first person that you'll probably talk to is most likely a representative from our Public Protection and Advocacy Bureau. They're our biggest bureau, and they're also our most public-facing bureau as well. And we'll have phone numbers for these different divisions at the end of the presentation as well. Oops. Sorry about that. Ooh. Going through a little bit of a technical issue. I'm sorry about that. But yes, where is the Attorney General's office located? So we have 2 locations in Boston, right near Beacon Hill and near the State House at 1 Ashburn Place and 100 Cambridge Street. But we have locations throughout the state as well. We have locations in downtown New Bedford, downtown Worcester, and downtown Springfield. But again, our division, we're trying to bring the resources of our office to different places throughout the Commonwealth as well. So it's not just in these areas. We can come to Pittsfield, we can come to Gloucester, we can come to Fall River, we can come to the Cape, or anywhere in between as well. If your organization, nonprofit, would like us to either train or just bring the resources of our office to file consumer complaints as well. But, oh no. There we go. But without any further ado, I'm going to actually give it to my colleague, Tim Deppen, who's going to be speaking more into identity theft and scams prevention. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. So as Bernard said, I'm Tim Deppen. I'm also in the Community Engagement Division of the Attorney General's Office. And the meat of this presentation is on scams and identity theft. Some general examples of scams as well as tips to help protect yourself. So to begin with, we have scams and identity theft. How are they related? And we sort of go, a scam can really work in one of 2 ways, which is it's a scam where a scammer is just trying to get your money. They just want you to send them some amount of money, and then they're really done with you. They may try to scam you again at a later date, but there's not much they can do with your money other than spend it, right? So it's essentially done at that point. But there are also other types of scams, or things like data breaches, where hackers and scammers get a hold of your personal information. And when they have that personal information, they can use that to steal your identity, to take out loans in your names and other things of that nature. And when they do that, they can take your money or leave you on the hook for money they have loaned at any point in the future. It doesn't need to be right away. So that's really sort of the long con here. When your personal information you're scammed out of your personal information, or your personal information is hacked or part of a data breach, you really need to be vigilant from that point forward. And at the end of the presentation, Pagani will take back over and speak a little bit more about identity theft, but we just like to have that breakdown here at the beginning. So we start with the golden rule of scams, which is that if something sounds too good to be true, chances are it's a scam, right? If something sounds too good to be true, chances are it probably is too good to be true. As much as I would love to wake up tomorrow and find that I've won $1 million in a lottery I don't remember entering, unfortunately, things like that just don't happen. The one thing I like to add to that is that sometimes if something sounds too bad to be true, we also want to be skeptical of it. At least the way my brain works, I feel like I can see pretty easily through the things that sound too good to be true. But if I were to get a call from someone who said, hey, Tim, you missed a student loan payment in June of 2015, so it's been sent to a debt collector with interest, now you owe us a couple $1,000s, right? For whatever reason, my brain gives a little bit more credence to that, but I really shouldn't, right? I should really approach that with the same level of skepticism that I do when somebody calls me out of the blue and says something good has happened. So we just really want to be careful when we get those calls, regardless. And some other tips that we have down here, which are good for scams and good for just general consumer matters. You always want to read the small print. You always want to guard your personal information, be very vigilant about that, and you want to do your research before you agree to anything. All right, so one thing I do want to say about this presentation is that it was made at a time in our office when we were really making a conscious effort to get away from too much text on PowerPoint slides. As you can imagine, in an office full of lawyers, sometimes our presentation looked like it had been written by lawyers. We wanted to try to make it more engaging, and this was one way to do that, right? Pictures on slides. With that being said, we may have gone overboard on a couple of slides. Perhaps we went overboard on a slide like this one. So if at any point I'm not explaining something well enough that you're seeing on the screen, please feel free to use that chat function and ask a question, and Bongani and I will answer it to the best of our ability. So to begin with here, we have some just general types of scams. This is by no means all the types of scams that are on there, but they're some of the most common ones that we see. If you start in the upper left-hand corner, what that's there to represent is what's called a phishing scam. We've represented that with a fish with an F, but phishing scams are phishing with a PH. And essentially what a phishing scam is that a scammer is trying to get your personal information about you, generally by pretending that they already have it, right? Generally pretending that you need to verify yourself to them. Sort of the most common example of something like this is you get an email that says it's from your bank, and your bank is telling you that you need to update your account number and your password. Can you please put your old account number and password in right now to verify yourself? If you're not thinking too much about it, it seems like it's a legitimate email. It looks like it's a legitimate email from your bank, and you enter your account number without thinking about it, but the truth is that's a scammer who didn't have your account number in the past, but you just gave it to them. You just gave them your account number and your password, and so now they have that, and they can try to use that to steal your identity, to take money from you, right? What's the best way to protect yourself from things like phishing scams? You should never give out you should always be careful with personal information, but you should never give out any personal information about yourself, about your accounts, the financial institutions you do business with, if something is coming to you unsolicited. If you call your bank, right, you give your bank a call to talk to them about something, they very well may have some sort of identification process that they have to go through to make sure that you're actually the person talking to them. That's completely different from then when your bank or a bank calls you, or a bank sends you an email, or you get something like a credit card offer in the mail, and without really knowing who you're dealing with, you send your personal information to them, right? If something's coming up to you unsolicited, you want to give as little information as possible and see if there's another way that you can contact them, right? If you get an email from your bank that says you need to update your account number and password, call them on the number that you know is your bank. Go in person, things like that, to make sure that you're not going to be the victim of a phishing scam. If we're going clockwise, the next one we have here represented is a pyramid. It's for a pyramid scheme, a multi-level marketing scam. You may hear either term. Essentially what that is, and I'm sure many people are aware of it, is that's one of those things where you buy some amount of product from somebody and you find 5 people to buy it from you, and they find 5 people to buy it from them, and the next thing you know, everybody's going to be making millions of dollars, right? But when we at the Attorney General's office hear about these things, generally what has happened is the person who started and bought this product is in debt or owes a significant amount of money for the product, and it's all in their garage or their basement or wherever they're holding it, right? It's very difficult to find as many people to buy it from you as they say that you can. So with those types of things, you just want to be careful. If something seems like it might be a pyramid scheme or a multi-level marketing scam, and if you do find yourself in one, to feel free to file a complaint with the Attorney General's office. The next one we have there represented, it appears to be some sort of bingo game. It's there to represent a lottery scam. A lottery scam, it may not be the most common type of scam, but it's definitely in the top 5. And it makes sense, right? Everybody wants to win the lottery. But essentially how a lottery scam is going to work is you're going to be told that you've won money, but you have to pay some amount of money to get your winnings, right? They could call it taxes, they could call it fees, they could call it any number of things that you have to pay in order to get your money. The best way to protect yourself from lottery scams is to remember that you should never have to pay money to win money. If you've won the lottery and they need to take out some sort of fee, well, they can take out the fee before they give you the money that you've won. If it's to do with taxes, right, you can figure out with the government how much taxes you're going to owe on these winnings. They don't need to get that as a prepayment to whatever lottery company, whatever lottery they say that you've won. Right? You should never have to pay money to win money. And we'll talk about the fake check scam a little bit later, which is a variation on this. And again, remembering that simple statement can really help you there as well. We also have we also have represented here things like financial scams, when you go to someone who says they can get crazy returns on the amount of money that you give them. Again, that's a good situation where if something sounds too good to be true, we want to be skeptical of it. And in general, we just want to be very careful about how much money we give someone up front without any guarantee of a return back to us, right? How much money are we giving to someone who says they can get us a 15% return on our investment within a year, right? And are we comfortable losing that amount of money, right? Knowing that in the stock market and other markets, that amount of money can be gone. And finally, in the middle there, we have represented a gentleman on a computer, which is to say there are a lot more computer scams than we've been seeing in the past, right? The amount of computer scams keep growing, and we'll talk about some of those on a later slide.
Yes, Tim, we actually have a question that we've received, and it's asking, what's the best information I could give to an elderly who has been scammed over the phone?
Well, I think that's going to depend, right? I think it's going to depend on the type of scam that it is. As we said at the very beginning of the presentation, if it's something where they just sent money to a person, I think your tact is basically to try to prevent another scam from happening to them, right? They've sent the money. They're probably, if they didn't give any of their personal information, we don't necessarily need to worry about identity theft. But we just want to maybe talk to that person about how that scam came in the first place, right? And the best advice we have for scams over the phone is that if you have caller ID and you have a voicemail, just don't pick up phone numbers you don't recognize. If you don't recognize the phone number and it's somebody who actually needs to get in touch with you, they can leave you a message and you can follow up with them later. By picking up, you're doing a couple things. You're giving the scammer a chance to scam you, right? They can't scam you if they're not talking to you, if they're not interacting with you. And you're actually making it more likely that scammers call you because if you pick up the phone, a scammer recognizes that. They see that as better than someone who does not pick up the phone, and so they call you more. And then when they sell their curated list of phone numbers to another scam organization, that other scam organization is going to call you more. So if it is the type of scam where they were just scammed out of their money, I think it's sort of prevention from this point forward, I think is the best advice for that person. If it's something where they gave some of their personal information out there, we'll cover that on the slides about identity theft, but you will have to be vigilant sort of from this point forward. I hope that helped to answer. So the methods used to scam, and essentially any way somebody can get into contact with you, unfortunately a scammer may try to use that same method to scam you, right? So at the top there we have door-to-door scams. I put those in a slightly different category because you're actually interacting with the person, right? They may be not quite who they stated they are, but you are seeing the person who may later attempt to scam you, which puts it really in a different category than things like internet and phone scams where, those people aren't in Massachusetts. They're probably not in the United States. They're definitely not who they say that they are, right? So, and with internet and phone scams, it can be almost impossible to get your money back, again, because these people are just not located here. With door-to-door scams, it can be very difficult, but it is in a slightly different category, and we'll tackle all of these separately. Internet scams, as I mentioned, represented there by the Google Chrome logo. They're growing. There's more internet scams that we're seeing as more and more people get online, and we'll tackle some examples of them. But still, the number one that we hear about, the number one scam that complaints come into the office about are phone scams. I think it's for a couple of reasons. There certainly are a lot of phone scams, perhaps more than any other method used to scam, but I think the reason we hear about it the most is that these phone scams are just the most annoying, right? You can ignore a scam email that comes in. You can close a pop-up window that pops up, right? You can shred, hopefully, any fake mail that comes in if it has any of your information on there. But it's harder to ignore the phone, right? When the phone is ringing off the hook, it is more annoying. So I think that's why we hear about those some more. As we have here at the bottom, things like mail scams and then things like credit card offers, right? We see those a lot too. We'll talk about the fake check scam, which is a type of mail scam. But again, with things like credit card offers or other offers you get through the mail, you just want to be very careful about what type of information you provide back to someone. You essentially, you don't know who you're dealing with. when something comes to you unsolicited in the mail. And even if it looks like it's from Capital One or another credit card company, it could be a scam, right? And so if you enter your personal information on there, you could be the victim of identity theft. And so you generally do not want to, as we said earlier, give any of your personal information when that comes into you unsolicited. If you're interested in what they're attempting to sell you, you can try to find another way to contact them. So how to mail, phone in, to some extent, internet scams. How do they work, right? At their base level, we sort of break them down, forgetting the individual details. What are the big ways in which people try to scam you? The most important thing a scammer is trying to do is they're trying to stop you from thinking logically about what they're telling you. They know if you are able to take a step back and actually think about what the story they're trying to sell you, you won't buy it because it won't make sense, because it is a scam. And at its base level, the reason why you have to give this scammer money is never really going to make sense. So they want to get you either so excited and so happy that you stop thinking rationally about it, or so nervous and so afraid that you stop thinking rationally about it, right? And we've sort of represented this breakdown by the either give you money or ask you for money. And that's, again, correlating to the so excited or so nervous. So they give you money. We talked about, or I alluded to the fake check scam earlier. Essentially, how that scam works is you get a check in the mail. It could be from the lottery. It could be from, or again, it could say it's from the lottery. It could say it's from a law firm. You were part of some sort of class action settlement. It could say it's from the Attorney General's office. As Bengani mentioned in the beginning, our office is able to give restitution back to consumers when we reach a settlement oftentimes. So it is true that occasionally we do send money out to people. But regardless of who it says it's from, the scam is going to operate in much the same way. You're going to get that check in the mail. You're going to go deposit that check. And within a couple days, it's going to look like the check is cleared. The bank is going to make the funds available in your account. Now, the real red flag with the fake check scam or any type of scam is what the scammer is going to ask you to do is deposit that check and then take some amount of money out of the check, usually a pretty small amount, usually no more than like 10 or 15% of the check, and send it to them via some sort of untraceable form of payment, right? They don't want you to write them a check that you could then follow, see where that was deposited. They don't want you to take out cash and meet them somewhere so you have an idea of who this person is. They want you to send it through a wire transfer, through Western Union. They want you to get a MoneyGram. One of the most common ones we see now is they actually just want you to put the money on a gift card and sort of read them the back of the gift card. They have a way of taking the money off of that. They want it to be untraceable because what's going to happen is in about a week or so, the bank's going to get to the end of the check. They're going to find out it's a bad check. They're going to take all the funds out of your account, right? And so at that point, you didn't get the money that you thought you had gotten. You're out the money that you sent to the scammer because it was not covered by the check you deposited. It came from your own account. We have instances where people go below a zero balance when they've been a victim of the fake check scam. If it's a large amount of money or they don't keep much money in checking, right, and then there are fees that come with that. We have also seen people who have their bank account frozen because from the bank's perspective, what happened was, you tried to pass a bad check and then immediately took some amount of money out from your account, right? They don't necessarily know that it was part of a scam. Now, in practice, what I've heard is, banks realize the fake check scam is a problem. In many instances, they actually try to stop you from depositing the check before it happens. But so you can work to get that account unfrozen. But in the moment, if you need to make a purchase, you need to pay bills, you need to buy groceries, whatever it may be, it's best to have that, not have your account frozen. So how do you protect yourself from the fake check scam? Again, as we said with the lottery at the beginning, the best way is you should never have to pay money to win money. You shouldn't have to pay money to win the lottery, as we said. I'm not aware of any law firm that's going to reach a big class action settlement and then send all the money out to consumers and hope that their cut comes back to them, right? That's not how it's going to work. They're going to take their cut right off the top. And I can tell you with our office, when we reach a settlement with a company, the checks that we are giving to people are worked out to the cent, right? So there's never going to be an instance where some amount of money needs to come back to us. So that's the first way you can protect yourself. The second way, and what you should be doing, is independently verifying this information. So when you get that check in the mail, what you're going to see, it's generally going to come with some letter as well. That's going to explain what the check is for, why you're getting the check, etc. There may be a phone number on that letter. You don't want to call that phone number, because even if it's legitimate, there's the chance that it's not legitimate, right? And that phone number could very well be part of the scam. So if you get a letter that says it's from Publishers Clearinghouse, you call the phone number and they answer the phone and they say it's Publishers Clearinghouse, right? That's not too difficult. Or they have a message that says it's Publishers Clearinghouse. That's not too difficult for them to do. What you want to do is independently verify the information. You want to find another phone number for the lottery or the law firm that it says it's sending it to you, or the Attorney General's office, and you want to call them on that number and see if the check is legitimate. The worst thing that this is going to cost you is a couple days without that money. Really, probably less than 1 day, right, that you have to wait to get that check in your account. But it could save you a significant amount of money down the line by independently verifying that information.
Tim, we got a question. It says, is this why banks hold checks for several days?
I believe why that's happening is, again, they're just trying to verify that the funds are there, but that's part of it. The banks are trying to figure out, make sure that there's money at the end of these checks. So the other side of the coin, right, of the giving you money is asking you for money, or ask is much nicer than they really do it. They really demand your money. You'll see things like, we have up here victim letters and calls, the grandparent scam. How that one operates is that you get a call, it's from your grandchild, a niece, a nephew, maybe a son or daughter, some family member, and it says that they're in trouble. They have gotten into an accident, or they've gotten in trouble with the police, and they need money right away to get them out of this situation, whether it's bail or something else. I really hate this scam because I think it's so obvious why, if you thought a family member was in danger or needed help, you would send money to them without really thinking about it. But again, it's really important to apply that level of skepticism and to take a step back, because there are going to be things about the story that don't make sense, right? Is your grandchild where they say he or she is, right? Chances are they're probably not. So the best thing to do is to try to get in contact with that family member, or get in contact with other family members who may know where this person is. Again, there are going to be other red flags, right? They're going to ask for some sort of untraceable form of payment, right? And it should be pretty clear that a police department's not going to accept a bail payment and iTunes gift cards, right? But they're hoping you don't get to thinking about that. Same is true for things like the IRS scam, right? How the IRS scam works is they're demanding amount of money from you for back taxes, and if you don't, you'll be taken to court, you'll be put in jail. Again, taking a step back, you can see that the IRS really wouldn't be calling you out of the blue and threatening you like this. The IRS would not be accepting these payments. We have up here a Green Dot card. A Green Dot card is a reloadable debit card, right? You put money on a debit card. It's really important, again, even when you're scared, when you're nervous about it, to still think it through and make sure that you're not falling victim to the scam. The other thing we have up here is when people offer free prizes, right? If you've won a free trip, but you have to pay $500 in fees to get on this free cruise, right? It stopped being a free cruise. And so you want to be very careful for things like that. Free trials are slightly different. Oftentimes a free trial is actually free the first time you get whatever product you're trying out, but what they really have you do is sign up for some sort of recurring payment, where you get one version of it free for 1 month, and you don't even come close to using it all. But then the next month you get another item, right? And when you get this item, you're charged $50 for it. If you find yourself in a situation like that, that's one where you can really file a complaint with the Attorney General's office, and hopefully we're able to help. The other thing you'll see a lot of scammers do is pose as the government or a bank. And why do they do this? They do this because everybody deals, or almost everybody deals with the government, right? Almost everyone has to file with the IRS. They know that, and that's why they choose to pretend to be the IRS. Or a lot of people, bank with a few big banks, right? So again, they're playing the odds here. These are wide net scams, and they don't want to lose someone from the beginning because they don't do business with that company, right? They don't want to pick a small credit union, even though there are some people who bank with that credit union, because most people don't, and they'll see through the scam right away, and there's no way that they will fall for it. The other thing that they can do, we should mention, with these phone scams, they have a technique, it's called spoofing, and essentially how that works is they can make any phone number appear on your caller ID. Generally what they're using this for is to make it seem like a local phone number is calling you. They're hoping that you're more likely to pick up a local phone number. So you'll notice, or I think you'll notice, because I notice on my cell phone, most of the scam phone calls you're getting are from your area code, your exchange, and the only thing that's different are those last four numbers. They're hoping you're going to pick it up because it's a local phone number. In other instances, what they use this to do is to lend a little bit more credence to their story. So when they call you from the IRS, they don't call you from some random number in Montana. They call you from a Washington, D.C. area code. When they call you from the Department of Revenue, if they're talking about your state taxes, they don't call you from Nebraska. They call you from the 617 area code because that Department of Revenue is here in Boston. That's what they're going to call you from, to lend a little bit more credence to their story. And it gets to the larger point that we've been talking about through this presentation, which is these small details are the things that they can control, right? They'll pick businesses that you are very likely in contact with. They can make their phone number seem right. They can know things like the correct addresses of the institutions that they're pretending to be from. They can know publicly available information about you. They can know your name. They can know your address. Obviously, they have your phone number. They may even know a little bit more through things like data breaches and stuff like that. They can know all that stuff. What's never going to make sense is the central idea of their story. What's never going to make sense is the reason you have to pay them the money right now and you can't wait another second and you can't call them back later, or you have to get your winnings right now and you can't call them back after you're a little more sure, right? Getting to that point is the best way to make sure that you're not going to be scammed. Because if you're looking for the little details that make sense, right, if you're trying to, let's say it's a lottery scam, and you want to convince yourself that it's right, you'll find little details that support their story, but the central idea is never going to make sense. We also have up here offering debt consolidation. It's sort of the opposite side of the coin of the financial investments we mentioned a couple slides ago. Again, you want to be very, very careful when you're giving a large amount of money to someone without any real guarantee on what the return is going to be. If you have $10,000 worth of credit card debt, and you're giving someone $5,000, they say they can take care of it all. Make sure you have some sort of recourse so that you're not just $15,000 in debt. If that person is not able to do anything with it. And the last thing we have here is confirm your personal info. So we talked about that with the phishing scams, right? They pretend like they have your personal information when in reality you're giving it to them the first time. The other thing I'll mention here is one thing you do want to be careful of is how much you say to someone, especially on these phone scams. There's a chance that they're recording you and they're looking for you to say something like yes or okay that they will then try to use to sign you up for services. I don't think that's every scam, right? I don't think every scammer is trying to do that. But again, the best way to protect yourself is the best way to protect yourself from any scam, which is if you don't recognize the phone number, don't pick up the phone, because you can't get recorded if you don't talk to them. You can't get scammed if you don't talk to them. So that's really the best way to protect yourself. So I jumped the gun on the fake check scam. These two slides are just about that there. Now just some information on internet scams, some of the ones that we see a lot. We do see a number of social networking scams. Somebody adds you on Facebook that you don't actually know in real life, that you're meeting for the first time on Facebook. And they may start up a conversation with you. Sometimes they're just seeking friendship. We do see instances where these are romantic, or they say that they're romantic relationships as well. They'll talk to you for months, and then they'll want to come visit you. And at that point, they may ask you for some amount of money so that they can come out and visit you, money for a flight. So let's say they're they're located in Utah, you're here in Massachusetts, you give them $500 to get a flight out here, they book the flight, they send you the flight number, they give you all that information, but then the time comes for the flight and, wouldn't you know, their sister ended up in the hospital, so they had to miss the flight. But they still really want to see you, so they'll plan another one, and they'll get in a car accident right before that flight happens, and then it can go on and on like this, and it can go on and on for a long time. The one thing I like to mention with this is, with all scams, there's a shame that comes with being scammed, the idea that you were duped, right, that you were tricked by someone. You don't really want to talk about it, you don't really want to think about it, but especially when someone is pretending to be your friend or someone is pretending to begin a romantic relationship with you, you just may not, it's very hard to accept that you've been scammed. So if you do know of someone or you hear of a relative or a friend who's spending a lot of time on Facebook talking to someone, it could be completely harmless, but I don't think it hurts to try to ask them about that, engage with them about that, because a neutral observer can really shine a lot of light onto the situation, and it may turn out that they've just been waiting for someone to sort of make it clear to them that this is not a legitimate friendship or a relationship. We have some information about classifieds here as well. If you're selling something, you want to be careful. Make sure you're actually receiving payment. You're actually going to receive a payment for the item that you sent if you're buying something. Again, you want to make sure you're using some sort of system that allows you recourse if you send your money and you never get the item to you. Also, when you're renting something, again, you just don't know who you're dealing with things like online classified, so you just want to be very careful about who you're accepting payment from, how you're accepting that payment, and that's going to work out for you. We have employment up here as well. In general, a rule of thumb I give is if you don't have to fill out any payroll paperwork to begin this new job, you want to be careful with that, right? And so if you're signing up for an online job, they're having you doing research or visiting websites or whatever it may be, you don't fill out any paperwork, it doesn't seem that legitimate. Those are red flags for you right there. Loans you can get online. Just make sure you're reading the fine print, understanding the interest rate that you're getting, and making sure that you have an ability to pay back this loan that you're taking out. And we talked about the free trial offers already on the previous slide.
We actually have a question that came in. Can you help with email which threatens that they're holding your data unless you pay money to an account number?
Yeah, so I mean, we definitely see those. I think that's sort of like the idea of ransomware, right? You get some sort of virus on your computer that will lock it down until you pay the people to release it. When that actually happens, when your computer is actually locked, that's well outside of my expertise of exactly how you could go about getting it unlocked. I mean, I think at that point contacting somebody in computer repair is probably the best idea to see if there's any way around without having to pay them. The things you can do to help protect yourself is that you can be constantly backing up your computer, so if you are ever presented with the option of, do I pay this person or do I allow them to sort of wipe my computer clean? It's not as hard a difficult a decision for you. We'll talk about on another slide where you report scams in general. These types of scams should be reported to what's called the Internet Crime Complaint Center. It's a website run by the FBI. It's at ic3.gov, the letter I, the letter C, the numeral 3.gov. These types of things can be reported there. If it's just an email which says it's holding your data or something to that effect, I mean, I still think you may want to report it to that website, but again, it could just be a scam email that's trying to scare you into sending money and not doing anything with it, deleting it, ignoring it, not clicking on any of the links, may be the best option in that instance. So door-to-door scams, again, I said I put these in slightly a different category. With door-to-door scams, again, most times when these happens, this is something you can report to the Attorney General's office, and we may be able to assist you with. Up here we have a couple of different examples of common ways people are scammed by people going door-to-door. Things like newspaper subscriptions, magazine subscriptions. When you're signing up for something like that, just be, really sure of what you're signing up for, that you're going to get exactly what you think you're going to get, and that they haven't signed you up for, multiple magazines or, daily newspaper when you only wanted the Sunday paper or something like that. Charities going door to door. Again, you just want to be careful, making sure when you're going to give money to charity that it's actually going to the cause that you think that it's going to. Making sure, asking questions like how much of this money is going directly to the charity, how much is going to you as the solicitor, things like that. Making sure it's a legitimate charity. In Massachusetts, almost all charities, pretty much all charities except religious organizations, have to file with the Attorney General's office. So, if they're not filed with us, they may not be a legitimate charity. You can always give us a call and check that. There are other services that you can check to see, how much of their money is going to the cause that they say it's going to. As a general rule of thumb, your money is going to go farther if you contact the charity directly and donate over the phone or something like that. Even if it's a very low amount, when people are going door-to-door soliciting, or people are giving you a call asking you to give money to charity, the solicitor is probably getting some amount of that money, which means that your money is not all going to the charity. I don't want to get the wrong number, but I believe it was over 50% of money donated through professional solicitation in 2016 or 2017 went to the solicitor, did not actually go to the charity. So your money will likely go farther if you donate to charity directly.
And if I don't mind interjecting, we're actually going to be hosting a webinar on Tuesday, November 13th, and that webinar is going to be all on nonprofit solicitation, professional fundraising, and best practices for giving wisely. We're going to have representatives from our nonprofit and public charities division to actually have a robust discussion about that. So if you'd like to sign up, you can actually do that on our Eventbrite page. That's massago.eventbrite.com. So that's massago.eventbrite.com. Again, that's on Tuesday, November 13, 2018. We'll have a full webinar presentation just on nonprofit solicitation, charities, and professional fundraising.
Yeah, and as like I said, those people know if this subject interests you. They know a lot more than I do, and we'll be able to get into a lot deeper discussion about it. And the final one we have up here is home improvement. The two major points I like to make when someone is coming door to door for things like home improvement is that you have the right to a written contract. And so when you agree with someone, whether even if it doesn't seem like that big a deal, right, we're just talking about mowing your lawn or shoveling your driveway, you have a right to a written contract. And in most cases, you're going to want that written contract, because should something go wrong, should there be a disagreement about what was agreed to or how much is owed, having that in writing is going to be really important. And the other thing is you have a 3-day right to cancel with any door-to-door sales. You have a 3-day cooling off period when someone comes to your door to try to sell you something or to sell you a service. And how you cancel the contract, how you go about exercising your 3-day right to cancel is written out in that contract. It's another reason why getting the contract is important. So if somebody comes to your door and for whatever reason you agree to more than you wanted to, maybe you just wanted them to leave, maybe you weren't thinking clearly, you were doing a million things, whatever it may be, you have that 3-day right to cancel, and it should be in how you do it is written out in your contract. And you want to make sure you're following that steps, whether it's sending a certified letter, whatever it may be, in order to cancel that contract. If you have any problems with home improvement contractors, or someone's not abiding by the 3-day right to cancel, you can file a complaint with the Attorney General's office. Home improvement contractors are licensed through the Office of Consumer Affairs. There's a home guarantee fund there. There's poor work done, whatever it may be, that you may be able to apply for. All contractors, pay into this fund. And so you may want to contact them as well for an issue with home improvement contractors. All right, so just briefly, where to report these scams. The thing I want to mention is, of course, you can report scams to the Attorney General's office. In many ways, it's helpful to us to know what are the common scams on the ground right now, so that when we do presentations like this, we're able to talk to what is actually happening and not what has happened in the past. But that being said, it's very difficult for our office to really investigate these scams. Again, as I've mentioned, these people are not in Massachusetts. They're not often in the country, right? So in general, and these scams are not only affecting Massachusetts, they're affecting people across the country. So in general, what we suggest is to report these scams to the federal level, and there are 3 different agencies where you would do that, and it depends on what type of scam it was. If it was a phone scam, a telephone scam, that's going to the Federal Trade Commission. And again, as Pagani mentioned, we will send all this out as a PDF, so don't feel like you need to rush down and write these numbers down. Everyone will be getting a copy of this. The mail scams, that's going to go to the investigative arm of the Postal Service, which is the U.S. Postal Inspection Service. And the internet scams are the one I mentioned on the previous slide. It's the Internet Crime Complaint Center. It's the letter I, the letter C, the numeral 3.gov. It's run in part by the FBI, and you can report those internet scams there. And with that, I will turn it back over to Pagani to talk a little bit about identity theft.
Yes, thank you, Tim. So we're going to get into a little bit about identity theft. Like Tim said when he started his part of the presentation, with scams and ID theft, usually scammers or hackers are looking to do either one of 2 things. They're either trying to take your money or they're trying to take your personal information. With your money, you might lose $500. You might lose something big like $10,000, but it's a one-time event, right? After that, hopefully you'll have better understanding of the lay of the land and how to best protect yourself. But with identity theft, it's something that can last for a while. So we're trying to give you some helpful tips and just ways that you can prevent that from actually happening, because if identity theft can happen, then it might be something that can affect you tomorrow. It might be something that can affect you in a couple of months. It might be a couple of years. It might be a decade. Because when they take your identity theft, they take your personal information, they take address, they take billing information, and what could possibly be the worst thing, taking your Social Security number. They can utilize that in many different ways, and sometimes in ways that you won't even recognize that it's happening beforehand. But we want to give you the tools to have so that you can at least monitor yourself and that you can try to prevent this as much as possible. But the first thing that we like to say when we talk about identity theft is it's kind of a lot like getting sick, right? Just like getting sick, you can be the cleanest person ever, wash your hands after or before every meal. You can have a whole bunch of hand sanitizer. You can be bundling up during the winter. You can be avoiding dirty places. But just by being a person and being in the world, there's a chance of you getting sick, right? And it's kind of like that with identity theft, right? We're going to give you a lot of different tools. It's going to make sure that it'll make sure that you'll be protected and that you'll be alerted if something does happen, if something fishy happens, and it can possibly prevent that from happening. But just by being in the world, needing to get medical services, potentially needing to get educational services or things like that, you're going to have to use your personal information, and that leaves you a little bit vulnerable. One example that we often use is the Equifax case, right? There's 3 credit reporting bureaus. There's Equifax, there's Experian, and there's TransUnion, and they hold all the credit information for everyone throughout the country. But unfortunately, you aren't their consumer, right? Their consumer are businesses who are conducting credit checks. It might be landlords. It might be just verification places that look into people's identities. But with Equifax, their data was breached, and with that, over a third of the country's data was actually breached and is now out there, unfortunately, due to hackers. But it wasn't because of anything that you did, right? It was because of Equifax and their lack of security in that system. So our office is actually working to make sure that Massachusetts consumers are protected from those type of things, but we're also working with this Equifax situation to find other remedies for people. But we just say, in general, we're going to give you tips, but it's not necessarily going to be perfect. And you should still use your information and be a part of the world, right? We don't want you to be bunkering away. But there are certain things that you can, just like getting sick, as it comes in, you might get your sniffles, you might get a little bit of a cough. There are certain things that happen when identity theft is happening and when it's starting and building up that you can see and that can trigger, hey, maybe I need to look into things, maybe I need to call these things. Are you receiving weird mail with weird medical bills or tax returns or things like that? Maybe someone has filed taxes on your behalf. Maybe they have had a medical expense using your identity. Maybe they're just sending random bills or things to your house. Those are things that are like symptoms and the consequence of identity theft. Once you see that, you want to be alerted and you want to take action once that happens. One, you want to contact, again, independently verifying the organization which you're receiving mail from, or you're receiving some payments from, or anything like that. And two, you want to make sure that you're checking your credit as well. We're going to go into that in a little bit, but you want to make sure that your credit report doesn't have like a weird account that has been opened or a weird transaction that you don't know of, a huge type of thing. Those are things that should trigger some warning signs as well. But if it does happen that your identity has been stolen, the first step that you're going to want to do is, like Tim said, the Federal Trade Commission actually has a portal in which you can file an identity theft complaint. You want to file that with them, let them know about the situation, because one, that triggers to them that this has happened, and potentially they can help you out moving further. But if you also file a police report with your local police, that combined together creates your identity theft report. And that's going to help you out later with freezing your account. So we're going to go into that a little bit later, but your identity theft report allows you to freeze your credit report for free. But we're going to talk about that in the upcoming slide. Two, you want to call your credit reporting bureau. So you want to tell them to give you a fraud alert, or you want to give a security freeze. Once you have your identity theft report, you can actually get a security freeze for free. Without the identity theft report, you're going to have to pay $5 for each credit reporting bureau. So that's with Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax, right? You're going to have to pay at least $15 to freeze your account. Create that security freeze means that no one can access that account or pull out any information, but it's also going to cost you $5 to unfreeze, or what we like to call thaw your account as well. So it's another $15 per account. It's $30 all in all. But again, if you get your identity theft report, that helps you out do that. So you might be asking me, why don't you just put a freeze on your account at all times? Well, the freeze on your account means that even people that you want to check your report or have access to that cannot have that. And right, you can't have access to it as well. So if you want to open up, say, a credit card, or you're trying to get a loan, or for whatever reason, maybe you have a medical procedure and they need to check your credit as well, they can't do that if it has a security freeze. So you want to be aware when you put on a security freeze that you're not opening a new account, or you haven't started a new job and they need to check your credit as well, because once you have your security freeze, they won't be able to do that. But you can also ask all three of these credit reporting bureaus for a free credit report. If you go to, it's freecreditreport.com. Annualcreditreport.com. That's where the credit reporting bureaus actually work with the federal government to provide you with 3 credit reports a year, one from each credit reporting bureau. So you can get that every 4 months. That's a soft check on your credit report. It's not a hard check, right? It won't damage your credit score or anything like that. They'll let you know that your account is as you think it is. And if something is actually happening, then you can monitor your account and you can see what's happening and hopefully quickly jump on that.
Guys, I just want to add one thing off of something that you said about the security freeze. So there was actually recently a bill passed in Congress that made the security freezing and thawing your credit no longer cost any money.
Okay.
So you're now able to do that for free. So that's one consideration when making a security freeze. But as you said, you still need to consider, are you trying to use your credit right now, and the hassle of that.
Yep. I would still recommend you getting the identity theft report by going and filing an ID theft complaint with the FTC and then with your local police department. That will help you out in the future. Step 3, you want to alert your creditors, right? You've alerted the credit reporting bureaus. You've either put a freeze or a security alert on your credit, but you want to alert your individual creditors. So your credit card companies, your bank accounts, maybe your savings or debit accounts, your retirement or investment accounts, and then your cable, internet, and phone providers, right? Because if you've had your identity stolen, then the person who has stolen your identity can basically spoof you and act as if they are you to either open up accounts or to switch accounts into a different pot of money or different area where you might not even recognize that you're not receiving your bills anymore, or that people are taking out massive amounts of money from your credit cards or bank accounts or retirement or investment accounts as well. So you want to let your individual creditors know about that. So step 1, step 2, and step 3. 1, you want to create your ID theft report. You want to call your credit reporting bureaus, again, Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, and then you want to call your individual creditors as well. Those are the 3 best things that you can do immediately. And those are going to put you at a good starting off point. If you have another situation in which your Social Security number is compromised, I cannot promise that you can get a new Social Security number or anything like that, but you want to contact the Social Security Administration. They're the ones that deal directly with this, and so it's good so that they know about that. If someone has filed taxes using your Social Security number, then you can work with the Social Security Administration as well to find a remedy on that. On the state level, you can also call the Massachusetts Department of Revenue, can let them know about this, and you also want to contact the IRS. Again, they deal with the situation often, and they can assist you and help you with that, because unfortunately, filing taxes and then claiming the money that you get back from taxes, the tax returns, that's a common scam that we see and something that we see with identity theft as well. So you want to make sure that you contact the Social Security Administration, the State Department of Revenue, and then the IRS as well, quickly. And again, I'm just going to review some of the golden rules that we've had over here, right? So 1, again, you don't ever need to send money to receive money. 2, if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. And the opposite as well is correct. If something sounds too bad to be true, it probably is too bad to be true as well. With identity theft, it's a lot like getting sick. Again, you can follow all these tips, and unfortunately, you can still get your identity stolen. But if you follow all these tips, then it's going to make it much more difficult for scammers or hackers to steal your identity or, practice illicit behavior as spoofing to be you as well. So those are a little bit of tips that you have. So that's our webinar today. If you need to file a complaint about identity theft, you can file it either with that phone number, 617-727-8400. That's within our office, or you can file an e-complaint as well. We have a lot of people who are looking into constituent complaints, and they'll be more than happy to work with you. I'm going to go to the next slide because you'll see our specific hotlines are here. Things like our Consumer Advocacy and Response Division, CARD, our Elder Hotline. We also have this presentation that's geared more towards savvy seniors, what we call it, so it's geared more towards the scams and the different things that are seen in the elder community. Our Fair Labor Division, Insurance Fraud Tip Line, Insurance and Healthcare Consumer Helplines are all here. Once again, we are recording this webinar. It's going to be available in about a week or so. We'll send out a YouTube link to everyone who has signed up for this webinar. Today we will be sending a PDF copy of the presentation as well as a survey along with that. If you don't mind taking a minute out of your time to fill out that survey, it really does help us out. So we really appreciate you taking time out of your day. We're going to be here for about like 1 or 2 more minutes. If you have any other lingering questions to us, we'll be here. As well as if you'd like to have us come to your organization or your community and give a presentation on something like identity theft and scams prevention, or landlord-tenant rights, or the unauthorized practice of law, or a whole host of different presentations. Can be workers' rights or civil rights as well. We can do that as well. We can do that in person, and we really appreciate you being a part of the webinar today. So thank you. We're going to be here for about 2 more minutes. If you have any questions, send it through that chat function. We'd be more than happy to help out. So thank you again.